Hello, it's Friday, October 6th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. Well, did you happen to see it yet? That incredible daytime moon? It is exceptional and extraordinary. We watched it this morning, the big white moon blazing away in a big blue sky. What do you say we meander over to earthsky.org and see what the specialist Bruce McClure has to tell us about this moon? Tonight, the Northern Hemisphere's full harvest moon has technically passed. On this night, the moon is in a waning gibbous phase. That means it rises in the east later and later each evening. And it means you can catch the moon over your western horizon after sunrise on the next few mornings. If you do catch the moon in the evening tonight or in the next few nights, notice the stars next to it. Come the date of October 17th, the moon is sweeping past the famous dipper-shaped Pleiades star cluster, also known as the Seven Sisters. On October 18th, that's something else to look forward to, the moon will be near the bright star Aldebaran. And, in fact, the moon will occult or pass in front of Aldebaran from some parts of the world. Apparently, earthsky.org received a question. When is the best time to see the moon in the sky during daylight hours? The answer is that the daytime moon is up there much of the time, but because it's pale against the blue sky, it isn't as noticeable as the moon is at night. But there are certain times of the month when the daytime moon is more noticeable. This upcoming week is an example of one of those times. The most noticeable moon at night is the one that stays out all night long. That would be around the time of full moon every month. That moon then is 180 degrees from the sun, or opposite the sun in our sky. Every full moon rises around sunset and sets around sunrise. But now the moon is in that waning gibbous phase, rising later each night and setting in the west later each day after sunrise. So, in the next several mornings after full moon, after sunrise, look for the waning gibbous moon in the west during morning hours. At mid-northern latitudes in North America, the moon will set well over 1 hour after sunrise on October 7th, tomorrow, 2017, and it will set 1 hour or more later every day thereafter. And something else tossed in by Bruce McClure. By the way, the moon is up during the day half the time. It has to be, since it orbits around the whole Earth once a month. A crescent moon is hard to see because it's so near the sun in the day. At the vicinity of last quarter moon, about a week from now, you might have to crane your neck to look up to notice that moon after sunrise. Ordinarily, we don't look up to see the waning last quarter moon and the waning crescent after sunrise, and that's one reason why people so often miss the moon during the day. Hello, daylight moon. Day by day, the lighted portion of the waning gibbous moon will shrink, and the half-lit last quarter moon, that'll come to us on October 12th. Watch for the daytime moon to start climbing higher and higher into the western sky after sunrise all this coming week. So here's the Moonwatch bottom line from Bruce McClure at earthsky.org. Starting around October 7th, 2017, look for the daytime moon in the west after sunrise. Yep, you gotta look for it. It will be well worth the search. Our next story comes from the New York Times, somewhat of a feature article indeed, with a byline for Kenneth Chang, and it features the country of Korea. No, we're not going all political on you here. This is ancient information. So sit back, listen, and hopefully enjoy. Nearly 6 centuries ago, Korean astronomers scanning the night sky for omens of the future spotted a new star in the cluster of stars they called Y, W-E-I, and what today's star watchers consider the tail of the Scorpius constellation. 14 nights later, it vanished. Astronomers have now identified the source of that brief brightening, a binary star system a couple of thousand light years away. Michael Shara, an astrophysicist at the American Museum of Natural History in New York, has been seeking to understand what happens following explosions in violent star systems, explosions known as, quote, cataclysmic variables, end quotes. He has searched for the remnants of this particular event for a long time. He says, quote, now about 25 years later, we've finally come up with it, end quotes. And the researchers have filed their findings in the journal Nature. In these systems, apparently one of the stars is a white dwarf, the burned out but still hot remnant of a star. The powerful gravity of that white dwarf pulls hydrogen away from its companion star and onto its surface. Quote, you accumulate about a Pacific Ocean's worth of hydrogen, end quotes, said Dr. Michael Shara. With more and more hydrogen, the pressure builds until it sets off a thermonuclear explosion, a burst of light known as a nova that is 1,000,000 times as bright as the sun. Quote, you get a giant fusion bomb, a hydrogen bomb going off on top of this white dwarf star, end quote, said Dr. Shara. And this is what the Koreans most likely saw March 11th, 1437. As powerful as nova explosions are, they do not destroy either star, unlike much larger supernovas. The white dwarf fades, and the cycle repeats until the next explosion, which could be up to 100,000 years later. In recent decades, astronomers have observed the fading of novas over decades. They've also spotted similar binary star systems that appear quite stable, calmly orbiting each other, and others that are belching only small eruptions, those eruptions known as dwarf novas. 3 decades ago, Dr. Michael Shara proposed that all 3 types, novas, dwarf novas, and those quiescent binaries, were variants of the same type of system but at different stages. This idea was hard to test, simply because scientists have not been observing them for very long. Thus, historical novas, like the one observed in Korea, could provide important clues to the life cycle between explosions. For years, Shara and his colleagues looked for that 1437 nova without success. Recently, they expanded the field of search and came across a promising cloud of gas, or nebula, that looked like the carcass of a nova. Other astronomers had noted this previously, but puzzlingly, the star at the center of the nebula is not a cataclysmic variable. A point of light not far from the center, however, is indeed one of those cataclysmic variables. The white dwarf and its companion are so close together that in a photograph, for instance, they will appear as a single star. That, the astronomers thought, could have been the source of the nova. They scoured those astronomical archives, the photographic plates at Harvard, and discovered a picture of the same star taken in 1923. That allowed them to see how far the off-center point of light has moved across the sky over the past century. And then they traced it back to where it would have been in 1437, smack at the center of that nebula. The star that currently appears to be at the center just happens to be along the line of sight. It's not related to this explosion. Said Dr. Shara, quote, the real novelty here is we have a clock. We can see how fast it's moving across the sky, end quotes. Additional Harvard images of the same star, images taken in the 1940s, showed a modest change in brightness, dwarf nova eruptions. And that supports Dr. Michael Shara's hypothesis that these stars of star systems go through all 3 stages. In an accompanying commentary in the journal Nature, Stephen N. Shore, professor at the University of Pisa in Italy, who is not involved with this research, described the work as, quote, a lovely piece of historical scholarship, end quotes. Dr. Shore said it was too early to tell whether this cataclysmic variable is typical or unusual, but it provides a long series of data for astrophysicists to try to recreate with computer models. Dr. Shore likened it to deciphering an ancient tablet, but not yet placing it in the proper historical context. He says, quote, we can read the cuneiform, but we don't know yet what it means, end quotes. Yep, taking away those layers of mystery one by one, star by star. Speaking of stars, UFO star writer Nick Redfern is going to do an appearance at the Leominster festivities. They're having a paranormal UFO festival at City Hall. Here's the story. Leominster, Massachusetts. The aliens will be returning to City Hall this weekend, and they're bringing the Loch Ness Monster with them for the city's annual Greater New England UFO Conference. Drawing from Leominster's storied history of UFO and Bigfoot encounters, the conference serves as a gathering for paranormal enthusiasts and a possible introduction for anyone curious about the unexplainable. Now in its 5th year, event organizer Susan McNeil Spuler said she's excited to be continuing the local tradition with returning cryptozoology experts and new guest speakers. Quote, "We always make sure to get excellent speakers who know their material and aren't just putting false information out there. If people want to know more about the paranormal, this is a great opportunity to come and learn," end quotes. The conference begins 6 p.m. Friday tonight with a series of talks and lectures from paranormal experts. The event continues from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday with appearances by more guest speakers and, yes, that obligatory costume contest. Every year, the conference draws spectators from all over the country, and McNeil Spuler said she's expecting a crowd in the hundreds for this weekend. Quote, "I just had a guy text me about it this morning. He's from New Jersey. People will come from all over just to see this. We just try to make it an educational, fun time for everybody," end quotes. Yup, it's today and tomorrow, so if you're in the area, heads up, you still have time to get in on the fun and the information. Alrighty then, it's the UFO headline news, so here come the UFO headlines. Here's a striking one we picked up from UFOstalker.com. Black triangle sighting in Stewiacke, Nova Scotia, Canada. Stewiacke is spelled Stewiacke. It's case number 87149 MUFON-wise. They issue numbers to hopefully track and identify what they can. The date of this sighting is 8/25/2017. It wasn't reported till October 5th this year. Summary: triangle silhouette against sky. Stopping to hover, then moving. No sound except for electrical hum. Strange time between exiting and re-entering vehicle after observation. That is intriguing. Here come the sighting specifics. The viewing distance 101 to 500 feet. The altitude was treetop and 500 feet or less. Sighting duration 3 minutes. Object features are simply reported as unknown. The flight path was stationary, hovering, then path, and then a path, and then more hovering. And quite obviously by its initial description, this object was shaped like a triangle, a black triangle. Just a quick notation of the temperatures. There's no other weather that was occurring during the time of this event. The maximum temperature over Stewiacke, Nova Scotia, Canada, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius. Down to a minimum, nothing out of the ordinary, we think 52 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 degrees Celsius. Let's just jump right into this report. My girlfriend and I first caught sight of the craft while driving down Veterans Memorial Highway. We were leaving Truro, headed towards Stewiacke. It was about 9 p.m. on a relatively cloudless night. From the passenger seat, I noticed a bright red light very far in the distance, to the right of the highway. I knew there to be some sort of tower in that area, towers with lights on them of similar color, so I didn't think much of it. 20 minutes later, I saw the same red light, somewhat closer, still off the highway. We made it to my girlfriend's house around 9:30. We spent about 20 minutes there, and then began to leave for Truro. From her backyard, I noticed the same red light that I'd seen before, but much closer now, close enough to see that it was actually made up of several lights, 3 white lights in a triangular formation, and an orange-red light in the center. We left my girlfriend's home then and began down St. Andrew's Street, where the craft then flew almost directly above us. We were both completely awestruck. It was then my girlfriend pointed out that it had completely stopped. It was hovering above the tree line to our left. So we immediately pulled the car to the side of the road and got out to get a better look. As we pulled over, the craft's course then changed slightly. Instead of heading directly over us, it headed more to our right and over the tree line, where we later eventually lost sight of it, but not before getting a very good look. This craft, which had stopped completely while going a relatively slow speed to begin with, did not have to slow down, nor build momentum or speed to return to that previous initial speed. The thing was maybe 100 feet above the tree line, probably 150 to 200 feet above us, and it seemed to be the size of 4, maybe more, lengths of our vehicle, using a Honda Civic car as reference. It showed a sharp triangular silhouette against the sky for just a...
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
A brief second. The only noise I can associate with it was a low electrical hum. The air, the time, felt strange. There were also 2 stroke-like lights on either winged side of this craft, as low as the craft was. There was no sound that would lead me to believe it was either a plane or a helicopter, as I'm familiar with the sounds produced by both. Now, because of these strobes, I later doubted that this was a UFO and began to do some research of my own on navigation lights, the navigation lights used by planes and helicopters. I could not find any formation of navigation lights I could connect with this. That, coupled with the strange maneuverings as well as the sound and the feeling it emitted, produced a phenomenon I will not soon forget. Because of this low speed, we were able to observe it for about 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, before losing sight of it. It was approximately 9:53 when we stopped the vehicle and got out. It was approximately 10:30 when we got back in, which is a time frame that still does not make sense to me, as I'm certain we did not stand outside the car for over a half an hour. This is all the information I can submit. My memory serves me well, and my girlfriend also witnessed this with me. We both agreed on the strange feeling and what we call the skewed perception of time. Attached is a drawing I did several days after the incident, as well as after my research on navigation lights. In the drawing, you can see the nose of the craft silhouetted against the moon. That was for artistic purposes, as I did not actually see that happen. However, the black craft was blacker than the night sky, and I couldn't think of any other way to show that in my drawing. And sadly, gentle listeners, you're going to be disappointed if you want to see that drawing because it never made it through to the post. But we do have a verbal description, an oral account, shall we say. It seems as though it's possible our witnesses experienced some sort of missing time. Oh, missing time, missing drawing. Go figure. Let's head over to Vancouver, British Columbia now, staying in our northerly trajectory. It's MUFON case number 87150. This is an older case. It occurred in 2016 on March 1st. For some reason, the witness has not reported it till the 5th of October this year. So here we go. Summary offers 3 white spheres moving silently across clear sky, northwest to southwest, perfectly straight line, kind of moseying along. Ready to land? Same altitude. The sighting specifics tell us the viewing distance here was 501 feet to 1 mile, the altitude over 500 feet without any cloud cover. The sighting duration was 2 minutes. Object features, none. Object flight path, straight line path, and this particular object seems to have been shaped like a sphere. Meteorology didn't seem to play a part in this event. There's just a quick brief notation as to temperature, and that temperature over Vancouver for this event was 51 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature, 43 degrees Fahrenheit, 6 degrees Celsius. Here's the account. My friend and I were standing at the top of the driveway at Keith Drive near 8th Avenue in Vancouver. It was about 3 p.m. It was a clear, sunny day. I noticed a white orb sauntering into the sky over the mountains to the north, coming from the east. This thing was about the size of a plane's cockpit and moving about the same speed as an aircraft, one that was ready to land at Vancouver Airport. And then another orb appeared behind the first one by about 50 feet. It was identical in appearance and motion, moving at the same speed of that leader sphere. And then, as my friend and I stood with gaping mouths, another white orb appeared, about 50 feet behind the second one. Those 3 orbs, then, moved silently and calmly across the sky, going from northeast to southwest. We watched until it all disappeared behind the trees. These 3 orbs were all identical, same size, same height, white, no lights, and at no time while we watched did their speed or course alter. They just moseyed quietly to the southwest, uniformly. We had no camera, unfortunately. They moseyed to the southwest, going down to Western territory. Boy, howdy. Cowboys and aliens, anyone? Well, we couldn't find a sighting from the American Southwest, so let's stay northerly, shall we, for another black triangle, this time seen in Salem, Oregon. It's MUFON case 87061. The date of this sighting is 9/28/2017. It was submitted 10/1/2017. In summary, triangle-shaped object that disappeared. Sighting specifics tell us that the viewing distance was over 1 mile, the altitude unknown. The sighting duration, 15 mere seconds. Object features, unknown. The flight path, straight line path. And, of course, this object was shaped like a triangle. Nothing abnormal weather-wise. Maximum temperature over Salem, Oregon at the time of this event was 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature was 51 degrees Fahrenheit, 11 degrees Celsius. And our trio of visibility factors, maximum, mean, and minimum, were all the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. Let's join our witness, who was walking my dog in the 700 block of Sandpiper Street in Salem, Oregon, when I heard a propeller engine noise. I looked up, but I didn't see an airplane. My attention was then drawn to an object that was passing over my head. It was white in color. It appeared to be a solid object. This thing was traveling slightly faster than I think an airliner would. And then, as I watched, I began to realize this object was triangular shaped. I watched this for maybe 15 seconds when it suddenly simply disappeared. At first, I thought it might have passed into a cloud, but that's not the way it disappeared. It just vanished. I looked further along what its path had been to see whether it reappeared, but it didn't. Oh, it's that clear sky, now you see it, now you don't. A scientific version of the cloak of invisibility. Speaking of invisibility, this is the part where we remind you we're going to be visible in a radio kind of way once again this weekend when we take UFO headline news off the beaten path. Include some stories that don't quite fit into the parameters of what we do during the week. And oh yes, you can count on us to fill you in on the Chicago Owlman latest sightings. Talk about a flap. Well, we've got to wing our way out of here now because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at UFO Headline News or iHeartRadio. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.